We're on Exodus 24. Verse 1 reads, Then he said to Moses, Come up to Yahweh, you and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall worship at a distance. Now, this chapter is the consummation of the covenant between Elohim and Israel that was first described in Exodus 19. Now, at that time, all the people agreed to follow the Torah of Elohim. That was in Exodus 19, starting at verse 5. We read, Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words which Yahweh had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that Yahweh has spoken we will do. And Moses brought back the words of the people to Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moses, Behold, I shall come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may also believe in you forever. Then Moses told the words of the people to Yahweh. See, that is the covenant. That's a covenant that's made. It was an agreement they had. He said, if you do everything, obey all my commands, I'll be your Elohim and you'll be my people. They said, everything you say, we'll do it. Well, Elohim now tells Moses to bring Aaron and his 2 sons, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders to him. Now, if we recall, Nadab and Abihu did not live long and fulfilling lives. They were killed by Elohim for offering a strange fire before him. And that's in Leviticus 10, the first 2 verses. Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it and offered a strange fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from the presence of Yahweh and consumed them, and they died before Yahweh. And we don't know what a strange fire is. We can assume they weren't the high priest, so they should never go into the holy place. Okay, that's only the high priest that goes there. But it looks like they were trying to act like the high priest and get that incense going. Okay, and go in there. And then later in Leviticus 10, it says that priests are not to drink alcohol before doing service to the Father. And I think maybe them boys were nipping at Grandpa's cough syrup there before they decided to go do that. You know how boys can be. But it was a price to pay. Exodus 24, verse 2. Moses alone, however, shall come near to Yahweh, but they shall not come near, nor shall the people come up with him. Moses alone could approach Elohim. Aaron, his sons, and the elders of Israel were not able to do this, just Moses. This is another way in which Moses was a shadow of Yeshua. Moses and Yeshua are the only 2 people Elohim spoke to in this direct fashion. Verse 3. Then Moses came and recounted to the people all the words of Yahweh and all the ordinances. And all the people answered with one voice and said, All the words which Yahweh has spoken, we will do. So, it's not like there's a misunderstanding. Okay? He's showing them, telling them again. Here, everything. That's twice. That establishes the matter.
Well, it's twice they said, so.
This is a deal. The deal's made. They were given several chances to decide whether or not they truly wanted to enter into this covenant with him. Okay? They didn't have to do this. They could opt out. Say, no, I like to mow my lawn on Saturday, so I'm not interested. But they didn't do that. Verses 4 and 5 of Exodus 24. And Moses wrote down all the words of Yahweh. Then he arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the sons of Israel, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as peace offerings to Yahweh. You know, a few chapters previous, we established that Mount Sinai was a type of the tabernacle. Moses, as high priest, was allowed to ascend up to the top. And the priests, let's see, I made an illustration here. Moses alone was allowed to go to the top. The priests were allowed to go part of the way up. And then the people were to stay at the foot of the mountain. You see, and we talked about symbolism during Sukkot, the symbolism in Scripture. Well, Mount Sinai is a picture of the tabernacle also, where only the high priest can go in the Holy of Holies, and the priests only could go into the holy place, and then the people of Israel stayed out in the outer courtyard. So that is that's the model that we have here. We read in Exodus 19, starting at verse 20, Yahweh came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and Yahweh called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Go down, warn the people, lest they break through to Yahweh to gaze, and many of them perish. And also let the priests who come near to Yahweh consecrate themselves, lest Yahweh break out against them." And Moses said to Yahweh, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you did warn us, saying, 'Set bounds about the mountain and consecrate it.' Then Yahweh said to him, 'Go down and come up again, you and Aaron with you. Do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahweh, lest he break forth upon them.'" So now Moses is taking a step further. He's adding an altar of sacrifice to the setting here at Mount Sinai. So we have a more complete picture here of this tabernacle, or picture of the tabernacle, and this altar of sacrifice is out where the people are, and it was also at the foot of the mountain where the people were. He said in that passage, "the young men of the sons of Israel." That's probably the firstborn sons. They were the original priests, if you'll recall. We talked about that just last night. They were dedicated to service of Yahweh. It wasn't until later that Elohim transferred that service over to the Levites. Let's look at verses 6 and 7. "And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and the other half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people. And they said, 'All that Yahweh has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient.'" So Moses took the blood of the sacrifices, divided it up into two parts. Half of it he put into basins. The other half he sprinkled on the altar of sacrifice. Now, the blood is going to play a very important part in the covenant between Elohim and his people. Once again, the people agree to do everything that's written in the book of the covenant. They're going to do everything. And keep in mind, the book itself is not the covenant. Okay, the book is just the instructions. Okay, they're the terms of the agreement. That's all they are. They're not the agreement itself. The agreement is the people saying everything you say. That's the signature, the people's signature there. That's the agreement. That is the actual covenant. A lot of Christians confuse the covenant with the law or the Torah. They're not the same thing. They're not even close. Okay. If I were to have a contract for Cliff to buy this house for $1 million, we have the terms of a contract, but until he signs it, he doesn't have to start making payments to me, right? But if he wants to, he can. But it ain't going to happen. So we got to keep that in mind. It's just the terms of the contract is all the law is. I know Church of Christ, for instance, their denomination believes there's Old Covenant, New Covenant, there's Old Law, New Law, because there's Old Covenant, New Covenant. And I have talked with more than one Church of Christ pastor. I said, I defy you to find the term Old Law anywhere in the Bible. And it's not there. He referred to Old Covenant. No, that's an old agreement that was made. The New Covenant is a new agreement that's made. And it's slightly different. We're going to look at that here in just a minute. Verse 8. So Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, "Behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you in accordance with all these words." Now, this is normally termed the Mosaic covenant or the Old Covenant. It was a blood covenant. It was a blood covenant in the same way that the New Covenant is a blood covenant. In Matthew 26, verse 28, "For this is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Look at the New King James. It says, "For this is the blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." The King James, by the way, and New American Standard are based upon slightly different manuscripts, so sometimes there are things that are different. In Mark 14, verse 24, "And he said to them, This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many." And the New King James once again says it's a new covenant and not just covenant. And notice that he said, "This is my blood of the covenant." He doesn't say, "This is my blood which is the new covenant." Okay? It's the blood of the covenant, just like the blood of the offerings was the blood of the old covenant. All right? And we talked about this just last night with Hebrews 7 and 8. The old covenant was different. The new covenant required better things because it's a better covenant. The new covenant because it's going to be made with a tabernacle that's in the heavenlies. Okay? And everything that's from the heavenlies. With the old covenant is made with a model of those things that was made by man. His blood is not the new covenant, but it's the new covenant that's in his blood. In Luke 22, verse 20, "And in the same way he took the cup after they had eaten, saying, This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." 1 Corinthians 11, verse 25, "In the same way he took the cup also after supper, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me," remembering that the vehicle of the new covenant is the blood of Messiah. Moses sprinkled the blood on the people. That designated their obligation to keep their part of the covenant. Now, with the new covenant, we are sprinkled with clean water, which is his word and his breath. In Ephesians 5, verse 26, we read, "That he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself the assembly in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and blameless." Also Ezekiel 36, starting at verse 25, "Then I'll sprinkle clean water on you, and you'll be clean. I'll cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. Moreover, I'll give you a new heart and put a new breath, a new spirit within you. And I'll remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. Then I'll put my spirit, my breath within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will be careful to observe my ordinances." Let's go back to Exodus 24, starting at verse 9. "Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the Elohim of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire, as clear as the sky itself. Yet he did not stretch out his hand against the nobles of the sons of Israel. And they beheld Elohim, and they ate and drank." Okay, they didn't look at him. They saw a vision of him. Okay, therefore, that's why we don't get a description of him, because they weren't looking at him. They only described what was beneath him as being a pavement of sapphire. Elohim did not stretch out his hand against them, because that would have meant certain death for those people. Instead, he said he had them stay, and they ate and they drank, which is interesting. Very interesting. That's what you do with a covenant. You have a feast. A feast is the way a covenant is often sealed. In Genesis 26, starting at verse 28, we read, "And they said, We see plainly that Yahweh has been with you, so we said, Let there now be an oath between us, even between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you'll do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and not done to you, and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You're now blessed of Yahweh. Then he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. Also in Genesis 31, starting at verse 52, this heap is a witness, this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass by this heap to you for harm, and you will not pass by this heap and this pillar for me, or to me for harm. The Elohim of Abraham and the Elohim of Nahor, the Elohim of their father, judge between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his kinsmen to the meal, and they ate the meal and spent the night on the mountain. It just seems to be a thing that they do. When the new covenant, when Yeshua said, the new covenant's in my blood, what were they doing? They were eating Passover. That's correct. Yeah, that's in Matthew 26, starting at verse 26. And while they were eating, what were they eating? You know, this is something, I guess in my past Christian life, I just skimmed over that, didn't notice that. They were eating a meal. They weren't taking these itty bitty little crackers and the little things of grape juice and passing it around. Okay? They were actually eating a meal. And while they were eating, Yeshua took some bread, and after a blessing, he broke it and gave it to his disciples and said, take this, eat, this is my body. That was the Afikomen, by the way. And when he had taken a cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Now, we know that new covenant won't be consummated until he returns. At that time, we'll be made whole, and we'll be totally spotless and blameless before him. Then we'll feast with him again. He continued in verse 29. But I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Interesting. What's he saying here? He's saying, I'm not going to drink it again until I return with the kingdom. He's taking the Nazirite vow. He's going away. You take the Nazirite vow to do special service for the Father. Okay? And we're not told what that is specifically, but we'll go over the Nazirite vow in Numbers, and we'll detail it more. But he's saying from that time on, he's not going to drink. No more fruit of the vine. And that's part of the Nazirite vow. That's why he refused when he was on the stake or on the tree. That's why he refused that drink. That, and he was offered the spongy stuff, and we'll talk about that. That was nasty. Okay? In case you don't know what that was. See, this is when he returns, it's going to be what's called the marriage supper of the Lamb. That's in Revelation 19, starting at verse 7. Let us rejoice and be glad and give the glory to him, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. See, this preparation of the bride is taking time. We're looking at close to 2,000 years now. These things do take time. And you thought it took a long time for your wife to get ready. See, this is what happened. Yeah, my wife's looking at me now. But it does take a while. Elohim has things in his time. Okay, he does them in his time. And, notice that just like the old covenant, they were on the top of Mount Sinai, weren't they? Well, that's what's going to happen here. It's going to be on a mountain also. We read about it in Isaiah 25, starting at verse 6. And the Yahweh of hosts will prepare a lavish banquet for all peoples on this mountain. A banquet of aged wine, choice pieces with marrow and refined aged wine. And on this mountain he'll swallow up the covering which is over all the peoples, even the veil which is stretched over all nations. He'll swallow up death for all time, and Adonai Yahweh will wipe tears away from all faces, and he'll remove the reproach of his people from all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken. Okay, let's go back to Exodus 24, verse 12. Now Yahweh said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and remain there, And I'll give you the stone tablets with the Torah and the commandment which I've written for their instruction. The commandments are given directly to Moses himself. Moses will give them to the people. Elohim wants Moses to stay up on the mountain for a while. Verses 13 and 14. So Moses arose with Joshua his servant, and Moses went up to the mountain of Elohim. But to the elders he said, wait here for us until we return to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a legal matter, let him approach them. So Aaron and his sons are left in charge while Moses is gone. And they're going to make any legal decisions that need to be made while he's gone. We're not told why Joshua went up with Moses, but he did. Verses 15 and 16. Then Moses went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. And the glory of Yahweh rested on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the 7th day he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. That Hebrew word there for rested is shakan. It means to dwell. It comes from the same root word as mishkan, which means tabernacle. Now Elohim will be giving Moses the design of the tabernacle in the ensuing chapters. Elohim was in the midst of a cloud just as he did at the initial agreement of the covenant. That's going back to Exodus 19. And verses 6 through 9, we see in verse 9, he says, behold, I shall come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak to you and may also believe in you forever. Then Moses told the words of the people to Yahweh. He also appeared in the cloud at the transfiguration of Yehoshua. That's in Matthew 17, starting at verse 1. And 6 days later, Yeshua took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and brought them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. And Peter answered and said to Yeshua, Master, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. So that's how Elohim appears when he appears to the people. Oftentimes it's in a thick cloud. Going back to Exodus 24, verse 17 and 18. And to the eyes of the sons of Israel, the appearance of the glory of Yahweh was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. And Moses entered the midst of the cloud as he went up to the mountain. And Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So after 7 days, Moses entered in the middle of this cloud, and he stays there now for 40 days and 40 nights. This is the same time, and by the way, he gets no food or water during this time. So it's obviously a supernatural thing. We could go without food. You know that. Well, they say you can go without food 40 days. I believe you can. I probably have enough reserve to go 60 or 70. But I'm not going to test it. But Elijah went without food and water as he journeyed to Sinai. That's in 1 Kings 19, verse 8. So Elijah, rose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and nights to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. Mount Horeb, what's the difference between Horeb and Sinai? I think it's probably the same mountain. Yeah. And this is the same pattern given to Noah before the flood in Genesis 7, verse 4. For after 7 more days I will send rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I'll blot out from the face of the land every living thing that I've made. And Yeshua was also tested in the wilderness for that 40 days and 40 nights. Matthew 4, verses 1 and 2. Then Yeshua was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he then became hungry. Now, it's interesting. The transfiguration, which is, a little bit of a mystery as to what's going on. Who was there with Yeshua? And Moses. The other two who had fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. The only other two. Any questions on Exodus 24?